Hello friends, welcome to Engineering Today, and we're back with some interesting updates again. Let's start with our favorite, SpaceX Starships. SN9's flight test moved one step closer as SpaceX test-fired its latest Starship for the first time. On Wednesday, January 6, SpaceX's newest Starship vehicle, serial number 9 or SN9, threw fire from its powerful Raptor engine at 5:07 p.m. Eastern Standard Time during its static fire test at SpaceX's South Texas facilities near the Gulf Coast village of Boca Chica. SN9's three Raptor engines lit up for about 1 or 2 seconds. This test was a routine pre-flight checkout for SN9, where the rocket's engine blazed for a second while the vehicle remained on the ground. It's a mandatory test that checks the engine capability of the rockets before taking their first flight. Just like SpaceX's SN8, SN9 Starship also has three Raptor engines, which use a mixture of subcooled liquid methane and liquid oxygen (LOX) as a propellant. It contains two turbopumps. Each Raptor engine is capable of producing 2,200 kilonewtons, or about 500,000 pound force of maximum thrust. Because of Wednesday's test, SN9 moved one step closer to its debut flight. If all goes according to the plan, then SpaceX's latest Starship prototype will take off from the ground soon. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk is expecting another epic flight test, just like SN8 made last month. Starship is the key to Musk's vision of colonizing Mars in the future. As we know, SpaceX's 165-foot or 50-meter tall Starship is a reusable rocket, which means the vehicle can launch itself from the surface of Mars and come back to Earth. Starship will be launched on the top of SpaceX's giant Super Heavy rocket, which will also be fully and rapidly reusable. Wednesday's static fire event was captured on video and posted on several social sites. Now SN9 will have to take some more tests before attempting the high-altitude flight test. Those tests will be in the near future, so stay tuned for exclusive updates. Let's move on to the next segment where we'll cover another SpaceX news. On the 6th of January 2021, SpaceX announced that the two satellites of the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, better known as DARPA, have been damaged at the payload processing facility. Both of these satellites were part of the forthcoming SpaceX rideshare mission. DARPA and the Air Force Research Laboratory jointly piloting a mission named Blackjack program. The goal of the Blackjack program is to deploy a group of small satellites into the low Earth orbit, or LEO. These two damaged satellites were part of this program. The incident occurred on the 4th of January at SpaceX's launch processing facility at Cape Canaveral in Florida. It was reported that the cause of the misfortune was the accidental release of the payload separation system during the ongoing stacking procedure of the DARPA satellites. On the 6th of January, Stephen Forbes, DARPA program manager, said, "DARPA and its government partners are currently working with launch provider SpaceX to execute their root cause, corrective action process, and assess damage to the satellites." He also said that the satellites were damaged to a great extent, and SpaceX is assessing the subsequent steps. SpaceX directly did not state about the causes of the accident. The Transporter-1 rideshare flight will deploy a number of small satellites to a sun-synchronous orbit for public and private clientele. DARPA's satellites were scheduled to take off on a Falcon 9 rocket and deployed in orbit as part of the Transporter-1 mission. This Transporter-1 mission, which is scheduled for launch on the 14th of January, will be the first dedicated rideshare mission of SpaceX. Those two satellites which got damaged were known as Mandrake 1 and Mandrake 2. DARPA portrays these satellites as risk-reducing spaceflights to bear out improved technologies. For instance, optical inter-satellite links and satellite constellation autonomy before the actual deployment of Blackjack satellite constellations in orbit. Our next update is regarding Virgin Orbit. Let's take a quick look. On Tuesday, January 5th, California-based Virgin Orbit went public to announce that the second flight of its Launcher 1 air launch rocket is scheduled for the 10th of January. The time for launch is between 1 and 5 p.m. Eastern. According to the information, a modified Boeing 747 aircraft will carry the Launcher 1 rocket. The aircraft will be launched from Mojave Air and Spaceport, releasing it from the coast of Southern California. This launch will carry 10 CubeSats from 8 universities, which is sponsored by NASA and one NASA Field Center. NASA's CubeSat Launch Initiative program arranged that field center. The company previously targeted the Launch Demo 2 mission in the middle of December in 2020, but it was postponed just a week before the launch. This is because COVID-19 contact, which caused a round of precautionary quarantines of its personnel. Regarding that, the company stated that the quarantines meant it had fallen below the number of staff we feel we require to prudently and safely proceed with pre-launch operations. Therefore, they called all the preparations for the launch. However, as per the recent information where Virgin Orbit said they completed all the preparations for the launch, including a wet dress rehearsal, means they're now good to go for the launch on January 10th. A wet dress rehearsal means the rocket is fueled and ready to proceed with the launch. The company also said if for some reason the launch could not take place on January 10th, then they have other opportunities to launch throughout January. The company has 3 backup dates of January 17th, 24th, and 31st. Now comes to Rocket Lab, which announced on Tuesday the launch of its next Electron rocket. According to the announcement, the Electron launch mission, called Another One Leaves the Crust, will take place no earlier than January 16th from the company's New Zealand launch site. A German company, OHB, is the customer for the mission. The Electron rocket will carry a single communication satellite built by OHB to the orbit. Rocket has planned a packed launch manifest for Electron rocket in 2021. These launches will take place from the company's both launch pad at New Zealand's Launch Complex 1, as well as its Launch Complex 2 at Wallops Island in Virginia. In the world of COVID and all the uncertainties, it's really difficult, Peter Beck, chief executive of Rocket Lab, stated in an interview. What we can say is that there's a ton of vehicles coming down the line, and if we can now recover them, that just accelerates that rate. Now we'll move on to the next segment of our news. Our last news for the day is based on Cygnus cargo ship. On the 5th of January, Wednesday, a Cygnus cargo ship of Northrop Grumman had successfully departed the International Space Station for a new mission. The new mission is to test 5G, or 5th generation, communications technology, and finally burning up in orbit. Northrop Grumman had launched the Cygnus cargo ship in October 2020, last year, to deliver about 3,600 kilograms of scientific equipment, hardware, a space toilet, supplies, and many other cargoes. After the arrival of the cargo ship in the space station, astronauts removed their cargo and supplies and then crammed the Cygnus ship full of waste and litter. Cygnus is scheduled to burn up in the Earth's atmosphere in a planned destructive re-entry to be held on the 26th of January, 2021. At 10:10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the unmanned Cygnus NG-14 spacecraft departed from the space station after the ground controllers released it from the robotic arm named Canadarm2. NASA astronaut Katie Rubins controlled the systems aboard Cygnus during its departure procedure from the perch of the space station. Cygnus will allow ground investigators to grasp a little more science from the mission, including the spacecraft fire safety, Sapphire 5, fire investigation, and SharkSat 5G technology experiment. The Cygnus spacecraft will also congregate the Sapphire 5, the most modern of the Sapphire investigations. The manner of fire in microgravity is not clearly recognized. Scientists want to research more to foretell about the expansion of fire and to observe it and snuff it out, to make future astronaut flights free from the threat of fire. NASA said about the Sapphire series, Sapphire 5 examines fire growth in the range of pressures and oxygen concentrations expected in future exploration spacecraft. Sapphire 5 also demonstrates fire detection, combustion product monitoring, and post-fire cleanup using hardware similar to that planned for future human exploration spacecraft. In 2003, Kalpana Chawla and 6 other astronauts died during the Columbia Space Shuttle disaster, in which the shuttle broke apart during re-entry. This Cygnus spacecraft is named after Kalpana Chawla, NASA said that Cygnus is expected to operate for about 2 weeks on SharkSat missions before re-entering the atmosphere. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this. Hit the like button if you find the video interesting, and kindly provide your valuable feedback in the comment section. This will help us to improve.